Hey guys, welcome back to our Sunday market session update. In this video, I want to show you guys exactly what I'm personally looking at moving forward within this financial week. Okay, so starting tomorrow, we're planning ahead on what we're expecting and what we're looking for moving forward and exactly what we want to see in order to have a trigger plan. So a plan that we can look, midweek, the early start of the week, and really see, what do we want to see within these markets? And if these setups do present themselves, then you're prepared to at least act on that and then take that trade. Okay, so let's just jump straight in. This is AUD USD. So this is on the FX market. And what we have is this fractal high on the weekly time frame. So you can see the most recent fractal high is this one here, and that's coming in at 0.66400 area. Okay, so this is the weekly fractal high. And then when we drop down to the daily time frame, you can see this in a lot more detail. You can see ultimately this was the level where sellers did step into the market aggressively. Okay, so what we've currently seen is essentially a deviation of this level. So we've seen price deviate above the level, and now we're currently holding above. Okay, what I personally want to see for a trade here, for a potential trigger, is I want to see a deviation below. So we've seen the deviation above. I want to see price come back below this level, close below on the daily, and then we can look to trade that back to the downside. So once we see that, or at least if we see that, so if we see on the daily, if we see closes below 0.66200, below that area, we can look for a trade off of this level, and that essentially allows us to have clear invalidation, right? Because if this is the range that we're trading in, so this is the range here, okay, essentially if we see this as a deviation, we come back below and we retest our invalidation. We've got clear invalidation above this level. If we do this, then we shouldn't see price come back above that level, because sellers should step back in, and then we can look, first target, you're going to have this mid-range here at around 0.65, which is a psychological level. And then you've got further targets down to the weekly lows there, down at about 0.63600. So essentially, you've got major weekly targets, which would be down at these levels down here. Okay, so just trade what you're seeing, guys. At the moment, we're seeing a potential deviation. However, this will not be confirmed until we see daily closes below 0.66200. That's on AUD USD. Once we see that, we can then look at a trade off this level. We'll have clear invalidation, so it may look something like this. Clear invalidation above this level, give it a little bit of room to breathe. And then, as I said, you've got first targets, which will be midpoint around a 1 to 2, and then you've got range lows at about a 1 to 4, around that area. Okay, so that's personally what I'm looking at on AUD USD. So we're seeing the deviation. However, we need to see the reclaim of this level, and then we can look to trade that back to the downside. Okay, so that's AUD USD. That's my perspective there. Okay, let's drop to Euro JPY. Let's jump straight in here. And there's not too much going on with this pair. Really, all that I'm currently wanting to see is this is the range that we're dealing in here, between 171,600, lows at 162,300. This is on the daily. This range here is way too large in terms of to have like a candle close invalidation. So really what I would want to see on Euro JPY is below this level, deviation, reclaim, and then we can look to trade this back to the midpoint of the range, and then essentially tag the upper part of this range. So there's not too much going on. I don't know if this is going to play out next week, but this is what I would want to see. Deviation below this level here, reclaim, and then if buyers can hold this level, you're going to see a move back up to the midpoint of this range. You'd have clear invalidation below this level, and you've got clear targets mid-range and then the upper boundary. Okay, so very, very mechanical in terms of how to go about that trade. But yeah, there's not too much going on here with Euro JPY. Why is this a very strong level? Well, it's a weekly fractal, and you can see clearly this is being respected. 1, 2, 3, sort of 4 touches there. So this is the key level, guys. 162, 500 area. Okay. So that's Euro JPY. I'm not looking for any short setups at the moment. That may materialize further into the week, but at the moment it's just a long setup that I'd be looking to take, and that would be based on a deviation and reclaim of this area down here. Okay, so that's Euro JPY. Now let's look into Euro USD. This is starting to look interesting. Okay, so this is a weekly perspective just for simplicity, and let's mark this on. So the most recent fractal high is here, and we've currently raided that liquidity above that fractal high. Okay, so this is the weekly perspective here. We've got the fractal high, but then when we drop to the daily to actually, zoom in on the bigger picture and see exactly what's going on, you can see we've recently run the liquidity above that high. So this is a fractal high here. We've run that liquidity. You can see that price has deviated above, okay? And we've had a reaction off that level. So we've had a reaction. However, we need to see a close below 1.08600. If we can see a close below there on the daily, then we can look for a retest, and we can look to trade that short. And why? So why can we trade that short? Because this will be classed as a deviation of this range here. We'll have a clear invalidation. We've got an entry here, clear invalidation above this level. If we're wrong, then price would start pushing back to the upside, and then this deviation wouldn't be an actual true deviation. So if we see a close below 1.08600, we can view this as a deviation here, and then we can look to enter on this retest off this area, and you've got clear targets. So in terms of a daily perspective, you've got this swing level here, which you can see was wicked perfectly here. Also lines up with a weekly fractal low, and then ultimate targets you've got down here. So essentially you've got a mid-range at about, at 1.07200. This is your mid-range where you're going to look to target first. Clear that, you're heading down to the lows down here. Okay, but so your trade essentially would look something like this. Once we've got the close below, that would be our trigger. You've got a stop loss just above the zone, give it a little bit of room to breathe, and then you've got first targets down at about a 1 to 3. It's up to your own personal preference how you want to scale out of the trade, but it would look something like that. Once we see that close below, retest, we've got mid-range, and then you've got the lows down as an ultimate target down at 1.06 key psychological level. Okay, so that's what we're looking at on Euro USD. We have seen the deviation. However, we need to wait for the clear confirmation, because if you do not see a close below this level here, because you can see, candles fail to close above this level. So if we can't mirror that on this side, then it's extremely likely that this can just continue pushing to the upside. So that's why it's extremely important to wait for your confirmations, wait for the candles to close, and you're really judging based off what you're seeing rather than just guessing and going, okay, this is a key level, I'm going to sell at this key level, because that is not a great way to trade the markets. You need confirmation, guys. Okay, next one, let's look at GBP USD. Of course, very correlated with our Euro USD. Let's drop to the weekly. These structures look very, very similar. You've got a fractal high up here. You've got a fractal low down here. This is on the weekly time frame. And we're currently approaching this key weekly level. Okay, so this is the area to watch. You can see I had an alert at this level because we're waiting for price to come back into there. We're at that level currently. We're at that level. So what we're going to be waiting for here is if we can deviate, run these stops, run that liquidity. This is where sellers stepped in last time. Okay. I want to see their stop losses manipulated, and I want to see the liquidity run. Once we've seen a raid on liquidity, we're going to look for something like this, guys. You've got mid-range as a first target, and then ultimately down to these lows. So, you want to see clear deviation, clear manipulation of the retail out of the market. Okay. Because everybody knows that this is clear resistance. This is clear supply in the market. Okay. But what sets us apart is you need to see that deviation. You want to see that deviation, and that allows retail to be, they'll see this as a breakout, right? Once price comes above this level, retail will start entering long in the market. That'll provide the liquidity for us to go short. Okay, that's why you want to see these deviations around these key levels. So these are the levels where banks are going to be looking at manipulating retail out of the market. So, currently we're at the level. I want to see price come above here, deviate, reclaim close above, below 1.26700. If we can get that daily close below, retests from this area, we can look to take that short. In terms of mid-range, you've got this horizontal coming in here, which was respected very well. You've got, sellers came into the market, it acted as support here, and it acted as support here. So this is definitely a major level to watch on the way down there. You're going to be looking at taking certainly profits off the table, and then you've got your key weekly, fractal down at the lows there, 1.23 psychological level. So, GU very, very similar to EU, certainly a setup that could present itself heading into this new trading week on the FX. Okay, so that's GU all mapped out. In terms of shorter term, this is what we're wanting to see, guys. Okay, so if we don't see the deviation, then there's no trade. Simple as that. Price could bounce off this level, but I need to see more than that. I need to see retail being manipulated out of the market. Okay. Next one. This one's even more interesting. So NZD USD, most recent weekly fractals here. So I've got that marked on for you guys. The most recent fractal low is here. So most recent fractal high, most recent fractal low. These are your references for liquidity. Let's drop down to the daily so we can see a clear picture here. So we've currently raided this liquidity here. We've currently run these stop losses. Okay. So retail that just blindly sell into these key levels, they've been stopped out. So any early sellers are stopped out. Okay. And retail are going to see this currently as a breakout. They're going to see this as a breakout. So what I want to see now, this is the deviation, right? So this is the deviation above this key level. What I now want to see is, can we then close below and retest this area? So, close below 0.60600 on NZD/USD on the daily. If we can see that close below, we've got clear invalidation. Okay. You're going to scale in here, stop loss above this zone, give it a little bit of room to breathe, and you're going to be targeting first target down to your mid-range here. Ultimate targets are going to be down to the lows. If we do run, we need to see how aggressive we start selling off. So at the moment, of course, this is essentially looks like a breakout to retail. However, if we can get closes below here, the retail that are long in this market will then be trapped. Okay. And we can essentially sell their stop losses, right? We can sell. They're all going to be long in this retest. They're going to be long in this breakout. However, we know if we can get below 0.60600, that's going to be a great area where we can look to start building into our short positions. And then we can look to target some of these lower levels. Okay, where you've got a clear mechanical based strategy with a clear invalidation, clear entry points, and clear exit points. That's what you need, guys. So that's NZD/USD fully mapped out for you guys. A target, we need to see how price reacts. We need to see how price reacts. But if we do, end up getting down to this key level here at the bottom, you could look for a deviation, reclaim, and then look to bounce that back up to the upside. But I don't think that's going to be a setup that's going to start playing, within next week. Okay, I think that's something maybe in a couple of weeks' time. But so I just want to give you guys the most accurate and sort of actionable plays that you guys can take, which would be this setup here. Okay, deviation reclaim of 0.60600. So that's NZD USD. Let's see what else we have for you guys here. If there's anything interesting, nothing too interesting on USD card. I don't think that's going to play out next week. Okay, I may send an update at some point, but I don't think that's going to play out next week. However, one that certainly could play out is this one here, USD JPY. This is the weekly time frame. Here we've got the lows at 151,900. Okay, weekly fractal lows. This is where buyers recently stepped into the market. Okay, on the higher time frame. So what I would need to see, this is your range that we're trading here. You've got a clear mid-range that we can mark on. What we would need, so you've got your mid-range around here, which kind of ties in with this horizontal. So let's mark that on. So it's around this area here, lines with this most recent horizontal. So that's that there. Let's get rid of the Fibonacci. And essentially what I would want to see here is price to start pushing down into this level, 151,800. If we can get a deviation below there, okay, and then reclaim this level, so a daily close back above 152,900, that's the area. If we can reclaim that level, I will be looking for entries off this zone and then looking to target. First would be mid-range here, this horizontal, and then you've got your upper range here at 160, 100. Let's just call it 160 for simplicity. Okay, so USD JPY, we need to see a run on liquidity of these, most recent buyers that did step in the market. Once we can see them manipulated, we can look for a reclaim, and then you've got clear invalidation. So it would look something like this. You've got an entry on this zone, invalidation clear below this level, and then you're going to look to target this mid-range as a first target, about a 1 to 2.5, and then ultimately you've got your range highs at 1 to 4.7. Whether we get there or not, I have no idea, but that, you need to base that on how price is moving. So yeah, actionable trade on USD JPY. Once we've seen that manipulation, you've got a clear trade entry here, all mapped out, clear invalidation, first target TP1, and then you've got TP2 up at the highs there. Okay, so that's USD JPY mapped out. Let's look at gold, guys. Let's look at gold because we're starting to approach a very, very significant level on the weekly. As you can see, most recent fractal high. So this is where sellers did recently step in the market. And what we would need to see here, this is quite a large zone. Okay, this is quite a large zone. So we could maybe take 50% of that zone just to condense that down. However, we would need to see a close below 2390. Okay, 2390. So what the setup would look like is if we can manipulate these early sellers out the market, and then we can close below 2390. If we can close below there, we've got entries at the midpoint of this range because, guys, this is a very large range. So just taking entries off the outer premise probably wouldn't be suffice. Probably worth taking the midpoint of that, and then you could look to target these lows here. You've got a horizontal sort of coming in around here, mid-range 2350 area is certainly a key area. You can see that acted as you can see, you found support here, resistance here, and ultimately that was used to propel price to the upside. So first targets would be this mid-range here, 2350, let's just call that, and then ultimate target would be down at the lows. So actionable trade would look like this. Once we've seen the deviation, you've got to retest 50% of this range, clear invalidation above the zone, and then you've got first targets and second targets. So that's gold mapped out for you guys, XAU USD. That's what I'm going to be looking for next week. So if and only if this presents itself, then I will be taking a setup. Okay. So that's my actionable trade on gold. Let's see if we have anything worth looking at that I can present to you guys here. Okay. Okay. I hadn't prepared this one, but let's take a look. So what we initially saw here, this most recent fractal low was deviated. That's indicated by this wick here, which is a sign that aggressive buyers aggressively stepped into this market. So this is our most recent fractal high, and most recent fractal low is here currently. But I want to delve in just to show you guys the setup that did present itself. Whether we got an entry or not, I have no idea. But let's just jump straight in. So this is the fractal high here on the weekly that we were looking at. We're on the daily time frame, so we can get a better perspective. Okay. So this is the weekly here. This was the deviation that we're talking about. So let's mark this on. So then when we drop to the daily, we can see exactly what we're talking about. So this is the deviation here, clearly below this level. Okay, and then we closed back above here. Okay, however, we didn't actually get an entry because you can see we had the deviation, great. We had the reclaim, closed back above. However, we wanted to see price come back into this area, and then we could look to long that market. You can see the idea is absolutely correct because ultimately after the deviation and reclaim, we saw the explosive move to the upside. Okay, however, in order for us to get a great risk to reward, we would have wanted to see price pop back into that area. Okay, back into that area, the 1.69500 area. We never got that. You can see price just sort of continued straight to the upside, which is fine. You can't catch them all, guys. Can't catch them all. Let's jump into an actionable setup on GBP card for you guys. So this was the weekly fractal that we're talking about, and you can see that's a very, very strong level. 1, 2, 3 large reactions off this weekly high. What we want to see now, is this the deviation? If that's the deviation, I want to see a reclaim, a retest of this area. I'm going to short this market aggressively. We can look to target the mid-range. Mid-range is here. Essentially, the new range would become this. Okay, this is the most recent fractal low here on the weekly. Let's mark that on. So this is your ultimate target, and you've got some horizontals coming in here. So your mid-range would become this, sort of around that area, maybe a little bit lower. Okay, so we've seen, is this the deviation? If so, we want to see this reclaim, retest here. We can short that back down to these levels. We'll shave some profit off here, and then ultimately you're going to be targeting these lows. Okay, so just picture this, guys. So you've got essentially like a triple top, right? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so think about how much liquidity is resting above these highs. Okay, as you guys know, when you've got like sort of equal highs, the liquidity is resting above there. So once you see that manipulated, you can look for a retest and then a trade back to the downside. Okay, something like that. I know that's not a great drawing for you guys, but that's the sort of analogy. Yeah, so there's a lot of liquidity resting above these highs. So we've seen that liquidity be taken. It's just whether we need to wait for confirmation now. Okay, we need to wait for confirmation. So that's my setup on GBP card. If we can get a close below 1.72, retesting that zone there, clear and validation above the zone, and then you'll look to target mid-range. Okay, so that's certainly a setup that I'm going to be looking at into this week. This is something that may play out like Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay, certainly something to add to your watch list. Okay, so that's it for this one. I think I've gave you guys quite a few actionable trades, on what you can certainly start building your watch list. Some setups that you're looking at starting to take within the next week. Okay, the next financial week. Maybe just to add here, make sure that you guys are waiting for confirmation. Just because you see a key level doesn't mean you can just short off the key level. Okay, it's one thing identifying the key level, but remember, you need a rule based strategy where you can wait for confirmation, which will give you that entry trigger to look to actually enter an actionable trade. Okay, don't go blindly shorting or longing off key levels, guys. That isn't really a profitable strategy. Okay. But yeah, I hope you guys gained some insight on sort of how I see the market, and I wish you guys a very great and fruitful week trading the markets. Okay, so that's it for this one for the Sunday financial market update, and I will see you guys in the next video. Okay, thanks for your time, guys. See you soon. Bye bye.